Hi, I'm Michael, and welcome to this live episode of Beyond the Screenplay, coming to you from the Glendale International Film Festival. Thank you. This is the podcast where each episode we do a conversational deep dive analysis into a film. Tonight we are talking about Clueless, the 1995 film written and directed by Amy Heckerling. I'm joined by the Beyond the Screenplay team, Trisha Rand.
Hello, everyone.
Brian Bittner.
Hello.
And Alex Calleros.
Hi.
All right. I want to start by saying, again, thank you to Glendale Arts for inviting us to host this screening. For podcast listeners, we and this amazing audience have just watched a screening of Clueless as part of the closing night of the Glendale International Film Festival. And this movie is just so much fun. We've watched it a lot. I watched it a lot in the last couple weeks in preparation, and it's fun every single time. And the four of us were talking off mic and trying to figure out kind of what we want to talk about. And there are two things that I think really stand out that we want to get into. So the design of the characters, in particular, Cher as a protagonist is just such a great protagonist. She has a clear flaw, but we're still like rooting for her, where we want her to win. She goes on this really great arc. And so what is happening in the writing to make us have that kind of connection? And then second, the excellent construction of every single scene. Each scene is tight, it's funny, it's doing story work, it has this really great pacing. And so that's one of the things we want to focus on, is characters and scenes. And then kind of as we get a little bit later on, we want to ask you guys what are some things that stood out to you. And like I said it before, dive into kind of what's working in the screenwriting to make that happen. But yeah, so let's start with like Cher and the protagonist and what we love about Cher.
I have so much that I could say. That was so much fun. I was having so much fun watching this movie. I forgot I had to do this thing. And I was like, oh. Obviously the POV is the first thing that jumps to mind, and especially with the voiceover. It does so much work to put us into Cher's POV, and it's so constant. It's like, I don't think I can think of a movie that has this much voiceover so constantly woven in and out of every scene. It really is like an internal monologue. And like it does a lot of comedic work, which I think is super important. Obviously, it's hilarious when she's like looking around the teacher's lounge and she's like, oh, a Snickers bar, and just breaks her own train of thought. And the same thing in the sort of crisis monologue later where she's like, oh, I love Josh. What's wrong with me? Oh, I wonder if they have that in my size. She's constantly like hitting both of those notes where we're with her, we care about what she cares about. And it does a lot of value system building of the world, right? Especially right out of the gate where she's explaining everything to us. But then, it's also just really funny to listen to and often adds like a comedic note to whatever else is happening.
Yeah, unlike, other voiceover where it feels like a crutch. It's like, well, we can't write a scene to get this exposition across. We have to do voiceover. It feels like it's such an integral part of the movie. And it's also, like you said, a big part of the comedy, because there's so many times where she has a thought, she has an epiphany or an opinion, and we kind of know better, or she's kind of not in the know about something, or is kind of mistaken about something. And we get to have that inner voice be part of the comedy there. And I think also, we talk about why is she so likable? Why do we like Cher so much? Even though she is clueless, like she is a comedic character. Often comedic characters are worse than us, and we are laughing at them. But we also, I think, see really early on that she gets genuine happiness from helping people in the way that she thinks they need to be helped. She might be wrong about that as part of her flaw, but she has that kind of Jane Austen, we can get into the adaptation elements of this, but that Jane Austen protagonist element of, I want to help those that I feel are lesser and need me. And she has genuine, joy seeing those teachers get together and making over her friends.
Yeah, everything you guys just said, the value system. This movie came out 30 years ago, or 10 if you're Paul Rudd. And like, I'm fascinated by a movie like this or Reality Bites, where it almost feels like a movie that was made 10 years later, looking back at the time, being like, this is like a snapshot of like what it was like back then. It's like, no, this was someone who knew exactly what time they were currently in and wanted to kind of like take a little snapshot and look at that. And I think, you could watch this movie and be like, oh, I'm going to watch this movie where these people talk, someone's literally going to go like, whatever. And, and I'm just like, am I going to watch this whole movie? And it's like, no, it is a satire. It's clearly someone stepping out, looking in at this. And then as you just said, Cher is kind of sweet and naive. She cares about her father. It's like, you have the Mean Girls version of this character who's like, yeah, we got those teachers to hook up. Now we get what we want. Who cares what they're... And it's like, no, she's like so happy to see them happy. And she really cares about Ty. Kind of her keeping Ty away from Travis almost feels like villain behavior, but it's only because she thinks that's bad for Ty, not because she actually, but then her judgment, her value system changes over time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's important for like a character to go on an arc. If they're going to learn a lesson of how to live, they have to start believing the wrong thing. And I think this movie, for all these reasons that we're talking about, does a good job of setting up both that she believes the wrong thing, that she's clueless, but also that there's a sweetness and a genuineness in there that you want to see like emerge and that you're rooting for. I think one of my favorite scenes is her in the debate class, like talking about it doesn't say RSVP on the Statue of Liberty, right?
Yeah.
It's so genius because it's both on one hand, she's totally clueless and, at surface level doesn't know what she's talking about. But the soul of what she's saying is like really insightful. And I feel like that's her character in a nutshell. And that scene is also doing all this other stuff, as we're going to talk about. So I think this movie does a good job of making us like the bad, flawed version of the protagonist, see the good, and then we're tracking that emerging across the whole movie in just a really effortless, like, strong way.
And real quick, talking about the filmmaker signaling to us that they know what they're doing. It's like the Nietzsche and the Burroughs and the Hamlet. It's just like, yes, you understand you are making, and even the fact that Cher has this vocabulary that she doesn't even appreciate that she has, right? Like she doesn't understand that she's as smart as she is, I think, sometimes. And again, that also just that endears us to her and it endears us to the film itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in terms of the comedy, you said just a second ago, Alex, that like comedy, like the people are worse than us. And that's kind of true, but it's really often in comedic characters that they lack self-awareness. Right? Like she doesn't understand how insular her world is and how like trivial the things she cares about would seem to other people. We do, and that's where the comedy comes from, right? Like her reaction to something a bad outfit, her hair got flat, whatever it is, right, is way bigger than it would be to like a grounded character or a character in a drama. That's what makes it comedy. It's a bigger reaction than it should be because she doesn't exist in our world. She exists in her world with her value system. And then the moments that land in terms of like the actual dramatic moments and the moments of her character arc is when she kind of is brought back down to our space. It's a really genius adaptation, actually, because Emma, the source material, is one of Jane Austen's novels where the character is very well off. So if you think about something like Pride and Prejudice, you have characters who are not well off, and they're having to navigate a world in which, like, basically they have to, marriage has high stakes for the young women in those novels. And in Emma, the central character does not need to marry. She is financially secure. She doesn't care about romance for herself necessarily. She's like kind of resigned to being a spinster at the beginning of the novel, but like a wealthy one. And she just is happy taking care of her dad. And it's a genius move to put it in this world where there are not stakes for Cher. What are they really? Like, and that's, again, what keeps it light and fun and funny. That's why it's fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I really love the first act of movies. That's usually like the most fun for me. And I think this movie has an amazing first act where we're getting to see the world through the eyes of Cher. And also we're seeing that efficiency of scenes where every scene is doing something. It's establishing how she feels about her dad and Josh and Travis. Like we're meeting all the characters. We're introducing all of the subplots one by one. And we're not even conscious of that, right? It's not hanging a lantern on like this belabored exposition. It's just sweeping forward, really, really fun. And I feel like it keeps that momentum somehow throughout the entire film where just every scene is handing off from one to another, and looking at, kind of like the inciting incident scene. So when Ty shows up for the first time, that scene begins with, the girls in line. And so there's this opportunity for the comedy, again, exposing us to the world and the values of these people. And then it hands off to, we're introducing a new character. And then Ty, then Cher makes a decision of like, Ty is going to be my project. Within those 2 or 3 pages, that scene is doing all of that work. And because it's constantly handing off between like, here's a funny joke, but also the plot's moving forward. And now the character's going to make a new decision. That cadence is never interrupted. And it's really impressive to be able to keep that up through an entire movie, to have no scene that feels like it's not doing that work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think, so obviously we're a very nerdy podcast. We're saying things like inciting incident, act 1. But, we do this because we watch, I'll say I watch a lot of streaming TV where I feel like a scene is not really a scene. And what I mean by that is somebody will walk into a room, they'll have a conversation, nothing actually changes, but it's kind of like we checked in with this character, nothing happened, next scene. And I think when we say that scenes feel good in a lot of these classic 90s movies, it's because somebody walks into a room and there's a reversal. Something they didn't expect happens. And then when they walk out of the scene, something has changed. They're on a new trajectory. And so watching Clueless, there are so many scenes where, once again, the stakes are Cher level stakes. They're not real stakes in our world. But for her, they're like something significant has changed. And so we can get into a lot of the scenes in this movie. But I think that is something that sometimes we forget about, which is, what is a scene for? A scene is for characters walk in, or not walk in, but we cut into the scene. Their world is moving in one direction. Something changes, and now the story's pivoted in a new direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something I have noticed recently is go to a movie with my partner or a friend, and they leave and go to the bathroom for like 4 minutes. And I'm like, oh, I should pay attention to what they miss. And then they come back, and I'm like, you're good. And this movie feels like every scene is like 30 seconds long, and every scene something happens. Even as you were saying, Michael, the scenes that feel like jokes, where it's like, oh, we're going to do this goofy thing. Then someone will like come in and be like, oh, this has changed now. I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but yeah, it just feels like it's always moving forward.
Even the great getting on the freeway scene, the car
yeah.
scene. That scene
good.
works as is, just as like a funny LA gag. But at the end of the scene, it kind of cements for Cher, no, I want a boyfriend, because she sees, how they are comforting each other after that near-death experience. So even the gags, I think, usually have an outcome that changes Cher in some way.
Yeah.
The party sequence is one that jumps to mind, where they're at the Val party, and Cher has this plan, and we know it already, that she's going to get Ty and Elton together, and she's moving every bit of that, like every single little moment at the Val party. She's like, why don't you dance with Ty? Why don't you do this?
She's such a hard worker. She
really is.
tries so hard.
Very persistent. Yeah.
Well, she cares a lot. And actually, that's also a very likable trait. Like a protagonist that really cares and is really active is one that's easy to root for, even if what she cares about, it doesn't seem important to us. But yeah, in the Val party, like every single little moment in it, she's trying to break up Ty and Travis because they keep trying to get together. And then she's trying to get him with Elton. Elton's trying to get with her, right? And then they leave. She's trying to send Ty with Elton. She's trying to go with the other person. And then at the very end, there's that amazing reversal where Elton's feelings for her are revealed. And she has to basically, her whole plan gets burned to the ground. And she has to totally change course. And then at that point, Christian is introduced into the movie, which in the middle of the second act. So yeah, it's just so efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all these kind of subplots that we're tracking and the movie is sort of effortlessly handing off between. And so it kind of creates this episodic feeling in some ways where we're right now our project is to get, Ty with Elton. And so that's what the party scene's about. And then something happens. So now she's, there's more reason to connect with Josh. And then there's just all these mini projects that take her on this mini arc. And so any, given 10 minutes of the movie, there's something interesting happening. There's a beginning, middle, and end occurring. But all of it's also moving forward the bigger plot. And so even just the the driver's test that's set up in that first scene that then has that epic, getting on the freeway scene like you were talking about, Alex, which shout out to the directing also. The directing in this movie
Incredible.
is really, really good.
Yeah.
That scene is tense and like one of the more exciting like car chase sequences, basically.
It also feels accurate to getting on the freeway in LA.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very much puts me in the headspace of being 15 and accidentally getting on the freeway. But like we're saying, it causes a change in the character. And so that then sends her into the next scene where she gets back from the driving test and she's super sad. And then, Ty reveals she has feelings for Josh and that pushes her further. Like every one of these scenes is like tracking its own little arc and also moving the character forward in really just impressive ways that keeps it fun. Like there's no downtime in this movie. There's no point where I'm like, oh, I'm kind of bored because something is always changing.
Right. Yeah, and you use the word energy, and I think that's a really good word for in movies in general. I think we've seen movies where everything is set up at the first act of the movie, the first third, and then it's just like a whole lot of time until all that stuff's going to come to a conclusion. And then we've seen movies where 20 minutes before the end, they're like, what about this new character? What about, and you're like, I'm so tired. I don't have time for this. And this movie, it like does a really good job of setting so much up at the beginning. But that's before Ty even shows up, like a third of it. And then that's before Christian even shows up. And then the Pismo Beach disaster. It just feels like there's always but that's a thing that drives people in a certain direction. Even the skateboarding thing, it's just something that makes people go, oh, I have to go this way now. I have to go over here and do something and interact with other characters. And it's just a really good example of a movie that knows which things to hold on to and like when to dole them out.
Mm-hmm. That's what I call out Christian is such a brilliant character for this character web because as a gay man, he is exactly what her kind of materialistic ideals of, he dresses better than me. Of course, I have nothing to offer to the relationship. Like he is the perfect man in her world of kind of like surfaces. And then it ends up being the perfect friend for that world. But I think it's a great part of her character arc to go all the way to that place where it's like, the perfect man that I think I want actually doesn't exist in the form that I want. He exists as my gay best friend. And then kind of comes back down to earth and realizes, wait, maybe what I'm looking for in a partner is not these superficial things that are checking all these boxes. And so it's also just really good character web design to surround a protagonist with people who will kind of like test her theory of the world. Right. And then even Ty in the same way is kind of like, Ty's my project, and then her project backfires. Ty becomes kind of like this monster version of her, which is now kind of ruining all of her plans. And so it's great to surround a character with these other people that push her to the ending where it's, wait a minute, I tried all these things. None of those were actually true. What is my truth? Oh, wait, my stepbrother is my truth.
Paul Rudd is all of our truth.
Oh, yeah. It's Paul Rudd, so yeah, we'll give her a pass.
Yeah, Christian is also a great example of, so thinking about story structure, kind of the character arc that happens is around the midpoint often in stories like this or Groundhog Day, a flawed character who slowly is realizing the truth. After the midpoint, after the halfway point, they kind of sort of get it. They're sort of realizing, wait, something's kind of missing. And the sequence with Christian is that where she's sort of realizing, well, maybe I do want someone. It's just that I want the wrong person. And so that's kind of exactly what should be happening to the character in that part that keeps it doesn't let her be flat. She is like evolving and getting closer to the thing. It's just she's going in a little bit the wrong direction. And the design of Christian, like you're saying, makes it a really fun, entertaining direction while we're watching them kind of steer toward the wrong thing. And so again, just the character arc trajectory, Cher is such a great like protagonist to study. And I feel like often it's like comedies and even kids movies, that structure is kind of on display and easier to like access. And so that's one of the things that's really makes those good ones to study because it's like right there on the surface. Do we want to get some questions, suggestions? Yeah. So curious to hear from people, standout scenes, sequences, characters, arcs, just any things that you think are interesting to dive into a little bit more and analyze. Feel free to just raise your hand and shout it out. Hello, Michael from the future interrupting here. We didn't have a microphone for the audience Q&A, so I'm going to quickly summarize each question. Our first question came from a guest who grew up in West LA and went to high school near Beverly Hills High. She said she was struck by how Clueless feels so true to her own lived experience in the 1990s that the script and the filmmaking really feel like a gift to people from that area. That's interesting. That feels like a well-observed thing, which Trisha is one of your trademarks from the podcast, if you don't know.
I was reading an oral history of this movie a day or two ago, and Amy
Hold on.
Heckerling.
How does that work?
Continue.
Explain
Thank
yourself
you.
for me.
Amy Heckerling went to high schools in the area and was like just writing down things that kids were saying, basically.
wow.
So it literally was well observed. She went there, she observed it, and then she wrote it down. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention just the dialogue writing and the slang and the lingo. I think it's so iconic, partially because it's never like handheld to it. Like our hands are not being held. It's not being overly explained to us. We're basically just being dropped into this world where Cher can walk into a room and be like, "Wasn't my mama Betty?" And no one's going to like explain to you exactly what the reference is or like a lot of other things. You kind of have to parse it for yourself, what all of it means. But it's delightful for that reason. It's fun to try to like figure out what anybody is saying.
Well, and this movie has become kind of a cult classic.
Totally.
You think about, music videos, Iggy Azalea and Charlie XCX Fancy. This movie, I don't think would be as iconic or as much of a classic if it wasn't so grounded in the specificity of this like peak 90s West LA thing. And I think, movies that stand the test of time are often highly specific. And so you would think that would be alienating watching them in later decades. But I think in some ways it makes them more rewatchable because it's not just a, generic high school. It's a very specific high school with very specific class, everything.
And the movie's not trying to be the coolest movie it can be in 1995. It's
Right.
trying to take this sort of bird's eye view look, as I was saying earlier, at the movie, which means 30 years later, 10 if you're Paul Rudd, that it feels like it is this like time capsule rather than feeling like something that feels so dated and off because it was trying really hard to be edgy and cool at the time.
Yeah. We say often on the podcast that specificity is universality. And that's especially true in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to underline, knowing a lot about what you're writing is good. So research is good.
Yeah, do that.
Probably
Yeah.
do that.
Yes. Yeah. One guest mentioned that the hold-up scene is interesting in that in most dramas, being held up at gunpoint would be devastating for a character and taken very seriously. But here, Cher just kind of brushes it off, and even the robber plays it kind of light. I think it really speaks to the story world that gets created in this movie that's not our world, but it's like recognizable. I find it fascinating that Cher has a computer that she can
Touch screen. It's a touch screen
computer where she's like choosing her outfits. That to me like immediately signals this isn't quite our world. I don't think that existed in 1995. We still don't really have that now. But I think that scene is a good call out because it is an interesting kind of tonal thing where there's enough stakes that we're worried and we understand that this is, a problem, but I'm not like, oh no, she's going to get shot in the head and there's going to be so much blood and gore. Like we know what movie we're in and like the spectrum of the stakes makes us like, I don't know, it's pitch perfect where it matters, but it can also be funny. It can also be entertaining at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, and just to your point, it's about the reaction, right? It's all in Cher's reaction. And it's not an appropriate reaction where, she's very concerned. She undoes her coat to just show her dress. She's like, you don't understand. I can't lie on the ground in this. And that's like the essence of a comedic character. Like think about, Charlie Chaplin, like his house is teetering on the edge of a cliff and he's slightly bothered, right? Or like it's that exact thing that makes comedy.
And I feel like it shows her values too, also that she
Totally.
doesn't react to this person as like, oh, you're disgusting. She's like appealing to this person as a human also. And so it's, again, doing character work and makes sense for her character at the same time.
Until later when Ty takes the attention and she's like, oh, when I was held at gunpoint, like now this thing matters because I could get something from it. Yeah.
I love how it shows once again that she has this value system of everybody in the world values the same things I do, right? So this will be part of my also lawyerly father strategy of like, I'm going to make a case right now. Like, you cannot ruin this dress. It's a very important designer. It's like not just a good dress, it's important. And I think I love, once again, we talk about comedic characters, someone whose value system is so specific and so like out of tune with the world around her. It's just great to watch her constantly bump up against the world outside of her Beverly Hills bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love when her dad yells at Ty to get out of his chair. I don't know what it's doing, but that's really funny.
The dad is some of the best moments.
Yeah, it's so good. Another person mentioned how well the movie captures the short attention span of teenagers, how they can kind of simultaneously hyper-focus on something one moment and then be totally scattered the next.
But the inner monologue, too, in some ways captures that because she is often flitting from topic to topic and, she has a new project. Now she's super focused on the new project, but then something can derail that very easily. And there's a new emergency, fashion emergency, whatever. And so I think that part of what is so great about the movie is the inner monologue is doing all the things we've been talking about, but it also is capturing something about that age, where it's, your inner monologue is so... It's getting really amped up about really unimportant things, and it's constantly going. And so it's a very accurate teenage mind representation, I would say.
Yeah. And again, I think the specificity is universality. Like when Christian's coming over and it's like the night and I have to design a lighting scheme and have something baking. I've never done those things, but I feel like as a teenager, I was concerned about like social events, like to that level. And so I think that's just another example of like putting you in that mindset of that, the young 16-year-old, that it creates that for the audience, even if you didn't live that experience, the filmmaking makes you kind of empathetically experience that.
To be fair, if I knew anyone who would design a lighting scheme for a date, it would be Michael.
That's true. Yes. As I was saying that, I was like, I might have it.
I also love the emphasis on friendship and like inter-friend conflict, female friendship, especially in this movie. It's beautiful. And that's so important for like teenage young women. Female friendships are everything. They're actually much more important than like romantic relationships in a lot of ways. And so like the fact that her relationship with Dion is always there. And then, one of the central conflicts in the movie is between her and Ty, them becoming friends. And then, it is the crisis point of the movie when Ty's like, why am I listening to you? You're a virgin who can't drive. It can throw a world into crisis, a conflict and a friendship when you're a teen. And so, developmentally, I think it's like, again, very well observed. You can tell that this was done with a lot of study and care.
Yeah. And I even like that at the end they do kind of just make up. Like nothing really changes. Like in some ways it almost feels like cheating a little bit because, Cher goes on this epiphany walk and then like gets it all. But I feel like the movie has earned it. It's set all the things up so that like it's all okay. And then it does just let Ty and Cher be like, no, actually, like we love each other. We're friends. Like, I'm so sorry. Like I like that it doesn't require more than, that to happen. We also had a great question about Amy Heckerling, asking whether the film's success is tied to the fact that she both wrote and directed it. What might have been different if someone else had directed Clueless?
And she also directed Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which Cameron Crowe wrote. So I feel like that feels like what a good setup to be like, now what's my thing, right?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think especially a movie is like stylized and pointed as this, when you can write a script knowing you don't have to worry about what a director is going to do with that material, and you can just say, I know that I need them to come in like that. I know, but like I'll do that because I'm making this movie. I can go do that later. Whereas when you're just writing a script and you don't know what's going to happen with it, you either have to accept that someone's going to do something else with it, or you have to be very directorial in your writing, which nobody likes. So it certainly goes a long way for movies, especially this, like I said, focused and pointed, to be as successful as they are. It can also mean an auteur gets to do whatever they want, and then nobody checks their bad ideas. So it also just means they have to be good at what they're doing.
Yeah. I think in this case, definitely.
Yeah.
In the interview that I was reading with Amy Heckerling, she was talking about how she was worried nobody would get it. The movie, I believe, had been like sold and then was put into turnaround because they thought the budget was too high. I can't remember all of the details, but she stood by what she wanted it to be. And she really also is responsible for the casting, which is kind of everything in this movie. And she really wanted Alicia Silverstone, and they wanted somebody, the studio wanted somebody bigger. And
Kathy Bates.
You're just right there, aren't you, Brian? And so, yeah, I think definitely in this case, Amy Heckerling seemed like she had a perfect understanding of what this was. And she fought to make it what she wanted it to be.
Yeah. I'm glad you called out the casting, because the casting, this cast
I mean, this
is
movie-
amazing and makes it. Yeah.
It doesn't exist without Alicia Silverstone.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's like she's
absolutely.
everything in this movie.
I just want to watch her face move.
Yeah, her mouth. Yeah.
One guest highlighted how the movie depicts Cher's intelligence. Amy Heckerling manages to show these teens through a completely non-judgmental lens. The film is satirical, but it never punishes Cher for being beautiful or caring about things others might call frivolous. By the end, Cher has grown, and she's wearing less makeup and more toned-down outfits, but she never stops being herself. She's still smart, she still values her interests. The film allows her to be vain and intelligent, which is pretty remarkable. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important thing to call out that this movie is, to try to summarize, it's satirical, but it's not judging these characters, and it doesn't feel the need to punish Cher for being who she is and caring about the things that she cares about. And I think that in some ways, I almost, watching it again, was expecting that to happen. Of like, this is now the part where Cher has to change who she is and realize this is the person you're supposed to be. But it's not. It's not that huge change. She's still shopping. She still cares about, there's a sense of who she is, but this core part of her twists and clicks into place. And I think it's a good thing to call out, because it's a very hard thing to do. It takes a very deft hand to navigate all of that.
Well, because she's wanted to help people from the beginning. And so at the end, she's just kind of pivoting with the direction of that urge to help. And I think also, I think what you're saying gets at the previous topic, which is, would this movie be the same without this writer-director? And I think you need Amy Heckerling to be at the helm. I think if she writes it and hands it to a dude to direct, I don't know if that's going to come across. Or vice versa. If a dude wrote this character, it may very well have been not nuanced. She's just kind of a dumb blonde. So I think this whole package goes together. You need that writer-director vision, the cast, everything for this to work.
Yeah, very much agree. All right, one more. Yeah. And finally, someone talked about Travis, how much care the film gives to his character and how satisfying it is to watch his quiet little arc play out through the story. Yeah, so Travis's character arc, really all of the characters in this movie change in some way, which is, again, hard to do, but makes such a big difference. But
Not Elton.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ends up with Amber. And as you've called out often, a way to make us like someone who's kind of unlikable is to put them next to someone who's much more unlikable. So next to Amber, Cher's amazing.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I had Fast Times at Ridgemont High in my head is because I saw that part of the genesis of this movie was people love Spicoli so much in that movie, Sean Penn's character. And people were like, oh, because he's a stoner, because he's a surfer. And she's like, I think it's just because he's so positive. And I think he just has this positive energy. And she's like, maybe we should make more movies about positive people. And the start of this movie actually wasn't, I want to adapt Emma. It was, I want to make a movie about a character who is that positive. And then she had the thought of adapting Emma. And I feel like Travis is that character. If we see Ty is this character who almost gets like corrupted by the sort of value system at the beginning of this movie. Travis is just very pure and loving and just smiling all the time, and like Breckenmeyer is adorable. And I feel like, yes, he has an arc, but also he's the character who's sort of like unwavering in his positivity, where every other character is always kind of going like this. And I feel like that's infectious, hopefully to Cher and to Ty and to the other characters of this movie, but also to us, because we just every time he's on screen, it's just like, we're like, oh yeah, I want to give you a big hug.
Yeah.
And it makes the moment where Ty insults him that much worse.
Exactly.
Right?
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. The crisis point of the novel, Emma, is just when Emma insults someone that's lesser than she is. So she's punching down, right? And that's kind of what that moment is, where, Ty just dismisses him the way that Cher might have done previously. And yeah, he's so nice that it's heartbreaking, the look on his face where he realizes she's being mean to him on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of that ugly side of the whole thing.
The 2 times he's not smiling in the movie are when she's hurt at the party, where you see he genuinely is like, oh my gosh, is she okay? And then when he's insulted. And the rest of the time, he's like, everything's good, man.
Yeah. And that's the scene where Ty is corrupted.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the party scene where Cher escorts Mo. Like, she would have wanted you to enjoy the party. Like she's passed or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, I think we should wrap it up here. Thank you again to Glendale Arts for inviting us to host tonight's screening. This was so much fun. Thank you to my co-hosts, Trisha Rand, Brian Bittner, and Alex Calleros. Thank you all for hanging out, and have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.